Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be creating this quick little movie lookup app. So it's going to load a couple of different movies. So if we load movie 2, it will be Up, and if we load movie 1, it will be The Godfather. And you'll notice that all the information about the movie changes. So the reason why we're doing this is we're starting to look at movies as an abstraction. Movies are like these complex things with soundtracks, actors, the actual movie itself, posters, ratings, opinions, all these different things. But rather than focus on the complexity that a movie is, we're going to try to abstract it by looking at only a couple of details, which seem to represent the movie. So the details that we're looking at are the movie title, the movie poster, the rating, and the summary. All right, so let's get started coding this from scratch. So I'm going to start by saving this. So this will be movies3.html. Yours will be a different title. So let's create the basic HTML structure, which is like this. We'll add some script tags at the top. Or no, not script tags, sorry, style tags at the top. It's been a while since we've done CSS, but I think we should do some in this video. Next up with the body, let's think about what's actually going to be the content of our page. So on the page it looks like we've got a title, which is movies. So we have an H1 with movies as the inner HTML. Now we're going to have packaged together a whole group of content about the actual movie itself. So to package things together, the element for that is a div. Let's give that div a class of content so that we can select it special from other divs. Inside of this we're going to have an image, so let's create an img. If yours doesn't create the source and alt automatically when you press tab, that's okay. It's also going to have an h2, which will be the title of the movie. It's also going to have a couple of paragraphs. So one is the ratings paragraph, and the other is the summary paragraph. All right, so I'm going to title this HTML document Movies 3, because for me it's the third version of this. And that way you can see that sometimes we'll be looking at the complete one as a reference, and sometimes we'll be looking at our new one, Movies 3. So if you load your page, this is what it should look like. Now one thing that we notice is with two different paragraphs, we need to be able to insert the inner HTML for the ratings here and the inner HTML for the summary there. So we have to give our paragraphs an ID each. So this one will be ratings, a rating paragraph. Just make sure that you're consistent with the pluralization. And then ID is equal to summary paragraph. All right, so we've got our whole content set up. So rather than, type in each movie like here, we want to kind of think about this in a more abstraction-based philosophy. And this is the way social media profiles work. This is the way Instagram photos work, is it has a general template, and then it loads the content in for that template. So we've got our template here, and we're going to load the content in with JavaScript. So let's create some script tags. So first things first, we need to select the elements on the page that we're going to be loading things into. So we're going to be loading an image into this. So let image equal document.querySelector img, lowercase img. And I'm going to do some copying and pasting. The next one is this h2 here. So let h2 equal document.querySelector h2. Now we're going to select the ratings paragraph. And that's going to be selected, instead of using a P for paragraph, because that would be ambiguous, which paragraph, we're going to select it using the hashtag ID for rating paragraph. And then we're also going to select the summary paragraph here so that we can insert the summary text into that. Make sure you use a hashtag for the ID, summary paragraph. So I know sometimes you guys don't like it when I zoom out because you can't see, but I think now you can see the lines of code all lined up. So let me zoom back in. Okay, so now we need to load the content into each of those slots. So in order to load this content in, you might normally have a database. We're going to be creating objects which store that information in them. So let's let movie 1 equal The Godfather. So this movie, we're going to abstract away all of the things, the trailer, the cast, trivia, all this stuff doesn't matter, the director, doesn't matter for what we're looking at. The only things we need to worry about, we're going to make as keys. So the title of the movie is important. Title is The Godfather. Next up, we're going to have the movie poster, which is going to be an image. And luckily, IMDb has the image for the movie poster right here. So if you control click on it, copy image address, you can get the URL, in quotes, for the movie image. Whoa, comma, not dot. Next up, the rating paragraph. This one has a 9.2 for the rating. So let's create a key of rating, and then let's give it a rating of 9.2. And next up, we have the summary paragraph. So let's just create a key of summary, and then for summary, let's copy and paste the summary text, which is right here on IMDb. All right, so this is our abstraction of a movie. Instead of worrying about any of the details or all the content that IMDb gives, we're just saying that the only things we care about from the movie are title, movie poster, rating, and summary. Now what's nice about this is every movie that we're going to be looking at has this information. So let's make a second movie by copying and pasting it for movie 2. So one of my favorite movies is Up. So let's search that one up. All right. So for Up, and of course you're free to use movies of your choice. So we have Up here. The movie poster is also going to switch. So let's copy the image address. So let's change that to this image address. The rating is a little lower, sadly, on Up. It's an 8.2. And then the summary text is right here. So we can put that summary text right there. All right, so now we've got two different movie objects following the same keys. And this is a really common structure that people use in web design or just programming in general. We create a cookie cutter template for what it means to be a movie. And then you fill in those for different movies in particular. And tomorrow's lesson is all about that. But today's lesson uses the idea as well. So let's create a function now to load a movie. So whenever we want to load a movie onto our page, we're going to need to tell it which movie we're loading as a parameter. That could be either movie 1 or movie 2. But we're going to leave it ambiguous here so that works for either movie. All right, so here we go. We had all of this stuff selected up here, so now we just need to fill it in with the stuff from our objects. So we're going to take img, and we're going to make the source of that equal to whatever movie we put as a parameters movie poster. For the title of the movie, that's going to go into this h2. So let's take the h2, and we'll set the inner HTML of that to whatever movie we input in, and the key for that is title. So the title of the movie is going to go inside of the h2 on the page, which makes sense. The ratings paragraph, we're going to fill that in with whatever the rating was. So we do ratings paragraph dot inner HTML is equal to movie, and then we go and we see which key has the value that's the rating, so it's rating. And let's make this one a little bit more complex. Let's add to this string, because it's out of 10, I think it'll be easier to read, plus out of 10. And then next up here, we've got the summary paragraph. So we're going to take the summary paragraph, and we're going to make the inner HTML of that equal to whatever movie we input as a parameters summary. So we look up the summary of it using the key summary. All right, so giving it a save and a refresh. Oops, the save and a refresh. Nothing happens. And the reason why nothing happens is we defined what it means to load a movie. Now we need to tell it to load a movie. So we call this function load movie, and let's start by loading movie 1, which should be The Godfather. Save and refresh. We've loaded The Godfather. Let's load movie 2, and that one is up. So at this point, you've got all the JavaScript and HTML completely down, but stylistically, the other version looks a little better. So let's see if we can catch up stylistically. So we go into the style tags at the top. Let's start by making the bodies, the body of the web page have a background that looks like this blue color. So I think that background will be something like hashtag DADAFF. Cool. Now let's grab our H1 element. Let's do a text align center on that so that our H1 is centered. Now for the content of the page, let's make the background of that white. And you'll notice that we use the dot here because we're selecting the div that had a class of content. Let's also put a border on this, which is going to be 2 pixels, solid, and black. Great. All right, so the layout doesn't quite match. All right, so to get the layout to match, a couple things need to happen. The width of the image is 150 pixels. That could have been anything, but I left it at 150 pixels, and that's important. Also, you'll notice that the content doesn't take up the whole page, it only takes up a section of it. So let's make the content have a fixed width of, I don't know, 600 pixels. Let's also center the content by doing a margin auto on it. Okay, we've got our content centered. Now, the only problem is that we've got our movie poster here and all the information down here. And really, we want these side by side. So there's a lot of ways to put them side by side, but my favorite tool for putting these side by side is something called CSS Grid. Now, we haven't done anything with CSS Grid yet. I have actually behind the scenes for a lot of the starter code, and we may go into more detail with this in a future unit. But I think you guys can follow along in this one. So we're going to say, take that content box, and instead of seeing it as one thing layered on top of the next, let's cut that content box up into a grid. So display grid. Now, in order to define what our grid looks like, it can have as many columns as we want, as many rows as we want. It's kind of like a Google Sheet where it has as many columns and as many rows as you want. We get to define that here. So we go into the content and we say grid template columns, and we're going to make it 2 columns. One is going to be the image, and the other is going to be all this stuff. So the first column needs to just fit the image. And since the image is 150 pixels, let's make the first column 150 pixels. We want the second column to take up the rest of the space automatically. So let's make the second column auto. Next up, if we think about rows, even though it looks like we have 1 row for the image, it looks like we have 3 rows for this part right here. So let's make grid template rows. 100 pixels for the first row. Whoa. 100 pixels for the first row. 100 pixels for the second row. And automatically fill the rest of the space for the third row. So 100 pixels, and auto. So saving it, refreshing it. Whoa, that does not look how we want it to look. The rating is like over here on top of the image. This is not good. All right. So to fix this, what we do is we create, lastly here, grid template areas. So when we split up this grid, it was creating 2 columns and 3 rows. So I'm just going to create a basic structure for what 2 columns and 3 rows looks like. And this should match what you set up there. And we want the image to take up all 3 of these left-hand columns. So we'll put I there for image, I there for image, I there for image. And then here we want the title, we want the ratings, and we want the summary to all have their own row, but only on the right-hand side of that grid, because the image is taking up the whole left-hand side. So CSS isn't smart enough to know that I stands for image, so the way we tell it that is we go now into the image tag, and we say that the grid area the image should take up is the one that's labeled I. And now the image will take up all the I's. Whoa, okay. It's getting there, it's getting pretty close. It looks like 100 pixels was a pretty bad choice for those line heights, for those widths. So let's do 50 pixels instead and see if that looks any better. Okay, that looks a lot better. So 50 pixels, and 100 pixels, or an auto, sorry. Okay, so you notice that we didn't have to specify the grid areas for these, and the reason why is once we fill in all of these with the image, since there's 3 left, it will automatically put the title, ratings paragraph, and summary in the order that they appear in the HTML in those spots. Okay, so I think this looks pretty close to complete. The last couple things are the H2 has to have a margin right, which is 10 pixels, and the paragraphs have to have a margin right, which is 10 pixels, and I'm mixing up my rights and lefts, I think. Those should be lefts, because it's the left-hand side that we want to create space on, so that there's a little bit of space on this left. Yep, there we go. All right, now I did a couple of other things here, but I feel like this video is already dragged on a little bit, so it doesn't quite exactly match. There's an emoji, there's a Google font, but I think it's a pretty good copy of it. To finish this one up, why don't you finish by adding 3 more movies from IMDb so that you can load any movie you want from those 5. So movie 1, once again, would be The Godfather, and movie 2, whoa, would be Up, but you're going to have movies 3, 4, and 5 using this cookie cutter idea. All right, bye.